Hello and welcome back to the Frugal Granny channel. I'm Frugal Granny, and if you're new, you're very welcome. I can see there's been a lot of new followers over the last week. If you're new here, the aim of this channel was to document my run up to retirement from my office job and then to document how I cope on what will be, comparatively speaking, a much reduced income. On Thursdays, we seem to have got into the habit of doing a coffee and a catch-up. So here we are, coffee and catch-up, and today I actually do have my cup of coffee. So if I can take the occasional sip, just to help with my ongoing sore throat, which is a free thing from the supermarket that I didn't want, then just please excuse me. What is there to talk about this week and to catch up on? Well, the main thing that has happened is that the scaffolding for the last renovation project on my house went up yesterday amid a lot of clattering. I sort of hid in the back of the house because I was nursing a little bit of a headache. And thank you all for your concern about the headache, and especially the lady who said that sulfite in sausages brings on migraines. I am actually fine with sausages. The headache I was suffering from yesterday was in actual fact just induced by stress related to my office job and the resignation period that I'm working through. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute, but let's just finish talking about the renovation project first. So the scaffolding's gone up, the exterior decorator went into the backyard and he's stripped all the paint off the washhouse window. He says underneath the wood is in really good condition considering that it's not seen the light of day since 1904. A little bit of putty is probably going to be needed at the bottom of the panes, but apart from that, nothing. He then went round to the front and started working on the front door frame and the front door. He's not here today. He's had to go back to the previous job because a part for their window that he commissioned to be made is now available. So he's gone to fit that and finish that job. He will be back tomorrow. So I'm just taking advantage of the peace and quiet to do some recording today while he's not here with his hot air gun and his angle grinder. But anyway, I'm so thrilled that that's started. I've not had the invoice from him yet for the scaffolding, which he's told me will be £500. And as I said last week, I've put that money aside from my supermarket paycheck that I got last Friday, and that £500 is sitting in my spare bank account waiting to be moved to him as soon as he sends me the invoice. So that's fantastic. Once that job's done, technically speaking, that's all the big rocks in the jar. But I was standing in the back garden with him yesterday and we looked up at the mess that the other guys made of my chimney in January, and it's left me wondering whether I might just get somebody in to give me an estimate to put right the mess that those contractors made, because it really is an appalling mess. I don't really want to talk about it now because I'm still really upset with myself for allowing myself to be railroaded so fast into getting that work done. I really should have said, no, I don't think it's going to fall down today. I just would like to talk to a few other people first. I never really thought that I would be someone who would fall for something like that, but I did, and I'm learning a lesson from it. And it's probably going to cost me more money to put some of that repair job right. But hey, that's life. I think we've all been there at one point or another. So the supermarket job, I've actually lost track of what I was saying now, because we were talking about renovations and then there was something else I mentioned and then I've forgotten what it is. But the other thing I did want to sort of say for this week is that I've realised, because of all the overtime that I've been doing, that I really need to be very careful going forward about how much overtime I accept, because I've looked at my schedule for June and I think I'm working every single day in June except 1 day a week. And really it's not good really. I would like to try and leave 2 days a week completely clear. I mean, some of the days that I'm working, the shift is only quite short. So in a sense, I'm not going to be missed. I'm not going to miss that time terribly, but it's just the mental idea of being in your own home all day and your time not being interrupted. So I think when we get into June and I'm on my new contract, which hasn't actually been put onto the system yet, I'm going to have to be very, very careful about accepting overtime and try and work out and decide which 2 days in the week are going to be my so-called weekend. They don't necessarily need to be next to each other, but I do think I need to leave 2 clear days. And I think that's going to be really important because I do feel as if I have been overdoing it. But I've been worried, and I've been overdoing it because I've been worried about trying to meet the financial obligations before I retire from the office job and to build up a slight buffer in case the third pension that I'm trying to negotiate doesn't get sorted out in time. So there has been sort of method behind my madness, but I mustn't allow the madness to continue. Gosh, look at that sunshade blowing in the wind. I really ought to roll that down later, else it's going to break. Anyway, try not to get distracted by that at the moment. So, scheduling going forward. The other thing that I wanted to mention about the supermarket is that I found out on Monday that some of my colleagues have found this channel, and I'm absolutely horrified that they've found it. I really had hoped that this would be relatively anonymous and that the people that watched it would not know me personally, and I just can't believe that people I know have found this channel and it's popped up randomly on their suggestions feed. So I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful about what I say about some things going forward. And yeah, don't know what to say about that really, except I was in shock when I heard, and it's taken me a little bit of time to calm down about it actually. No one at the office yet has said they found me, but they found me at the supermarket. So there you go. Right. Yeah, back to the office. One of the things I wanted to mention today, especially in relation to some of the ladies who've left comments saying that they're about to resign or they've just resigned, they're working their resignation period, they're following in my footsteps, they're looking at my journey with interest because they're about to embark on the same thing. And I would just say that the resignation period is a really challenging time. I have found it incredibly challenging. Before I resigned, I was signed off sick for 4 weeks with work-related stress, and I'm quite happy to admit that. I was incredibly stressed, and there was a point, I can actually remember it when it happened. There were 2 points. There was one point in a morning one day when an email came from one of the central officers saying they were going to change a certain system. And I just remember something inside me snapping and thinking, I cannot believe they're going to change that as well. Is there nothing that is not nailed down that they are not going to change? And something inside me then said, no, there isn't. They're going to change everything. And I realised that something one of my colleagues had said, that once the change is over, we are going to find ourselves in a very different landscape. I remember her saying that, and I remember thinking when I read this email, I don't want to be part of that landscape. I don't fit into that landscape. I don't think I'm going to be able to function in that landscape. And something inside me had already snapped at that point. And then after I had a sort of a review because I was new in that particular post, and I don't think it was necessarily a formal thing. It was an informal review, and at the end of that review I was told that my role had been taken into the restructuring that was going on, which was something that I hadn't anticipated. I thought that by taking the role I'd sidestepped it and dodged a bullet, but I obviously hadn't. And again, I think that really snapped something inside of me. Even though the role I've got is safe, the fact that the goalposts had changed so dramatically, and I've got to be careful what I say, because I don't want to cast aspersions here, but it was basically the fact that the goalposts had shifted so rapidly, and that because they'd shifted when they had, I hadn't been eligible to apply for the VSS. And even though I asked retrospectively if I was eligible, I was told no. And I just thought, I've had enough of this, what with everything. And that's when I went off for 4 weeks with the work-related stress and had time to think about it, and decided, I can't stay. My head's just not in the right place. This is not the place for me anymore. And I could have just given 4 weeks notice and left. But because of the leave that I've got accrued, that would have meant I would have left at the end of the week that I'd given notice. And I just felt, from a professional point of view, that wasn't very good, because it didn't really give people time to adjust or do whatever they needed to do. So I gave the 3 months notice to retire early. And that in itself has been a real challenge, because I'd already been off for 4 weeks. The tasks that I usually did had been reallocated to other people, and I was told, well, there's no point us reallocating those jobs back to you while you're working your resignation, because you're only going to be here for 8 weeks, and the last 4 weeks of the 12 weeks are accrued leave. So there's no point you taking those tasks back for 8 weeks. We're going to reassign you to this particular project, and you can work on that project from home. And that's fine. I was quite happy to accept that. But I just want to say that, working at home for 8 weeks has left me feeling a little bit isolated, and especially after my final coffee and goodbye last Thursday, I feel totally dead in the water. I'm not getting any emails from anybody about anything, and it's really weird. It's been a real struggle, actually, to stay motivated, and there have been days when I've not been motivated at all, and it's been very difficult, and this is so unlike me, and I've not found it easy, to be honest with you. So to those of you who are about to follow in my footsteps, just think about how you're going to manage your resignation period constructively. I mean, a lot of it may not be down to you. It may be down to what you're assigned to or reassigned to. But it's not been easy. And my daughter, I've been talking to her, she works in finance and has had quite a lot of experience with redundancies and changing jobs. And she basically said to me, well, employers don't handle resignation periods very well, which was a comfort to me. But I personally think that a lot of thought went into trying to help me leave well. So I don't want to cast any aspersions, but I won't hold back from saying that it really has been incredibly difficult, and I'm looking forward to leaving next Thursday and just getting on with my life now. It's really hard. It really is. So, thinking going forward, I've not just got to think about scheduling my supermarket shifts, so I've got some time in the week to think and live my life and clean my house and eat properly. That is the big thing, though, the eating properly. I really want to rethink my eating once I don't have the office job anymore. I'm just thinking I might need to have my main meal at lunchtime instead of in the evening on the days that I'm doing evening shifts. And now my son is working for the employer that sponsored him for some training last summer. He's working for them nearly every day. He's going out and doing a proper 9 to 5. I just need to have a sit down and ask him what he wants to do about food as well, because I left him the sausage and baked bean curry yesterday and he didn't want it. He said it was too much for him really, and I didn't eat it because I went out for a shift, and I'm not going to eat it again today because I've got my lunch planned, and so I'm just like, what's going to happen to that? I mean, it may end up getting wasted, which actually breaks my heart, because that really hadn't been my intention when I cooked it. I thought that was going to do us for a couple of days, and it probably isn't now. It's been sat out on the side for 24 hours, and I'm not sure anybody's going to want to eat it now. So I feel really bad about that too. So need to have a think about eating, scheduling meals, what are we going to eat, because it's not just my life that's changing, but my son's life's changing too. So we've got quite a lot of thinking to do. And the other thing I've got to do once I've got my daytime back to myself is try and schedule in some time for YouTube, because I really hadn't expected this channel to get the traction that it has. I thought it was just going to be a low-key casual thing that might start bringing some money in by Christmas, but it's gained traction in a way that I had never anticipated, and I'm now actually thinking I've got to schedule in time for filming, I've got to schedule in time for editing, I've got to schedule in admin time for reading and replying to comments, for planning the schedule, for doing background research. There's a lot more to running a YouTube channel than you would think, and I think I knew this before I started, but it's not until you end up rubbing your face in it that you realize that you've got to do these things. And also the other thing I've got to try and find time to do is get some training. I need to learn how to edit. I've got a lovely iPad that I won last year at my office job for being best staff support, and I've hardly used it in the 9 months that I've had it, but I need to get that fired up and learn how to edit videos on iPad. I'm looking at the moment to try and get on a workshop at the local Apple store, but they've got nothing scheduled at the moment. So I might just sort of ring them up and give them a hint that it would be really nice if they could put something on in July. And if they can't, then I'm just going to have to make some time to go through some YouTube clips on how to and teach myself. And all these things do take time. So although I thought that leaving my office job was just going to be a quiet thing and I would just slip, from one thing to the other quite seamlessly, I think there's going to be quite a few big shake-ups in my life that need readjusting, in terms of managing my supermarket job, managing the YouTube channel, rethinking my eating, and obviously rethinking your eating means probably rethinking shopping. And I'm like, I've got these freezers full of food. It's very likely that my son might move out in a year's time. So I need to start working on running those freezers down now, so that, when he's left, I'm not left with mountains of food that is never going to get eaten. I mean, I found it very helpful listening to Sharon this morning on living on a low income UK and looking at what she's bought for the month and thinking, yeah, I'm going to be in this position at some point, and I really need to rethink my shopping and food storage strategies. because I'm going to be a single household at some point, and I need to prepare for that. I need to run things down so they don't get wasted. So there's going to be quite a lot of things that change and a lot of things that I've got to think about. Yeah, the only other thing I just wanted to share with you today was just to respond to a few of the comments that people have made about Kitty. I wanted to hold her up and just show her to you today, but she's fast asleep in her donut bed on one of the chairs on the other side of the kitchen table. You might be able to hear her snoring again. But Kitty was born in February 2013. She went to a family in North London when she was old enough to be adopted or whatever, rehomed or whatever. And then I was looking for a little black pug to go with my fawn pug, the one that died in March. I'd been following an account on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but it was called Pugs Might Fly. I don't honestly know if it's still there. And the lady there had a fawn pug and a little black pug called Biddy Boo. And I really wanted a Biddy Boo to go with my fawn pug. And I found Cassie on a pets website. And she was living with this family in North London who'd got a young family, and the mother had decided to go back to work that September after the school holidays, and they needed to rehome the little pug because it wasn't going to work with two kids at school and a mum going back to work. And there was a partner involved as well, but I don't know what he was doing. So I watched the price go down over the weeks with Kitty, and when it reached £400, I thought, right, it's not going to go any lower, and I love this little kitty. I'm going to ring up and get her. So a meetup was agreed, and I took the £400 and my son and my other pug on the train to North London, and we met the lady and her daughters on a street corner. Money was exchanged, and I got Kitty. And yeah, she was in an interesting condition when I got her. She'd been living in a high-rise flat with a Staffordshire Bull Terrier that I think had been eating all her food because she was severely underweight. Her black coat was brown, which I found out from the vet was due to vitamin deficiency. I was also told she'd got no muscle tone, which meant that she'd probably never been taken for a walk. And she'd also got that rather unpleasant habit of I can't even say it. Basically, she was eating her own poop. And I think this was because the Staffy was guzzling down her food as well as its own. And she'd got a cut across one of her eyes. Thankfully, the eyeball wasn't damaged, but the eyelid was cut, and I think that was probably due to the Staffy as well. And her tummy was caked in dried urine. You could literally scratch it off with your fingernail. It was that thick, and she stank. And I looked at my son and I said, my eyes said, oh my goodness, we can't possibly take a dog like this. And then he looked back at me and his eyes said, well, we can't possibly leave her like this either. So I said, right, we'll have her. And we took her home, and the first thing I did was give her a big wash, and I had to have a wash too. And since then we've been on a bit of a journey of rehabilitating Kitty. And she wasn't called Kitty at that time. She's been through quite a few names, but she's now Kitty, and she can't hear me calling her Kitty because she's now mainly deaf. She's got a cataract in one eye, so she's partially blind as well now. I mean, she's 12 and a half years old now, and the journey with Kitty has been a long one. I was just saying to a lady in the park the other day that we were talking to, it's incredible how even a few weeks of not being cared for properly can affect an animal for the rest of its life. I mean, she's got quite a lot of emotional problems, and since my other pug Pie died, she's become incredibly clingy as well. and she cries now. Well, not when I go out, but if I go out and then my son goes out, he says that she cries, and she's cried a couple of times when I've come home. So, and she's very, very protective of me. She barks at anything in the park, which needs quite a lot of management. So she's never off leash, never. Yeah, but she's a super duper little dog, and I'm very glad that she came into my life, and I'm very glad I've still got her. And to be honest, that was another factor in me deciding to leave my office job, that I just wanted to have more time with Kitty now that Pi had died. And yeah, the other thing was the commute was getting a bit too much. So yeah, so I've sort of spilled my heart a little bit today. I hope I haven't said anything out of turn. I'm just eternally grateful for the way I've been supported through the last few months by work, even if I've struggled with it. That's my problem, not theirs. And I just wanted to say to those of you that are following in my footsteps, you know, just think how you're going to manage that, because it is quite a trying time. But at the same time, the weeks do go incredibly quickly, and I can't believe that 7 weeks have gone already and that I've only got 1 week left. So anyway, my coffee's probably cold by now, but that's fine. I can just sing it in the microwave a little bit, and my lunchtime is half over, and I just need to get back to my data sheets. And I will see you on Saturday, and we will talk about how I'm going to allocate my penultimate office pay to meet the financial obligations that need to be crossed off the list before I retire, because that's another thing that somebody said is, don't you realise you've got to get rid of your mortgage and pay off all your debts before you retire? Well, yes, that's what this channel has been about, is been preparing to make the leap, to make sure that I am financially secure and on a solid footing before that day arrives. So yes, I do realise that, and that's what last month's pay allocation video was about, and it's what the one will be about this Saturday. And also there'll be a final one at the end of June when I get my final paycheck. That will pay off the final things, and then from then on it's going to be a whole new world, as they say. But anyway, thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you again on Saturday. And if I get any time on Saturday, I might be able to film the Prepper Pantry tour, and hopefully might be able to bring that to you sometime next week. We will see. But anyway, thank you for dropping by, and we'll see you again next time. Bye bye now.